Deep in the bowels of Nurgle's realm, two lost souls converse. Welcome to Hereticast.
Welcome to the Hereticast, the only podcast with a live studio audience. Sorry, I meant mind studio audience. You can't see it, but they're going absolutely nuts right now.
This is going to be a special episode.
Absolutely. For anyone who didn't get the hint at the end of episode 2, go watch episode 2 if you haven't seen it.
Watch it.
This episode is going to be the Harlequin episode.
Yeah, or as we like to call this episode, Clown's Rights.
And we'll get into why shortly. That's a story.
Yeah.
But to start things off, Harlequins as a faction are far and away one of my favorites and Maggie's absolute favorite.
Well, for obvious reasons, if you follow me on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah. But all things considered, the Harlequin faction does get a considerable amount of love because they're very unique in the setting of 40k, where everyone has some very grim element to them. Harlequins are literally just clowns.
Allow me to go on this little off-tangent, because I've always wanted to say this in a recording in my entire life.
Do it.
Harlequins are the best Eldar faction ever, because those are space elves that watched killer clowns from outer space and were like, you know what, let's go with this. And that's why they're the coolest.
Oh, God.
They're killer clowns from outer space. But they make it cool. They make it badass.
That movie is so gross.
It is gross, but on the other hand, the Harlequins make it look cool, actually.
Like, I can spin this. What's it called?
I can work with this.
The movie versus the fan art.
Wait, no, the movie versus the Netflix adaptation.
No. No.
But yeah, so the Harlequins, the Harlequins are essentially the Eldar performers. And they're essentially work as like the ultimate bridge between the Drukhari and the Eldar. Even the Drukhari kind of respect to a certain degree the Harlequins. And
That's for two reasons. One being Harlequins have a lot of sort of religious and cultural significance to the Eldar as the keeper of the stories of old. Like, Eldar culture and heritage is, like, the ancient culture and heritage is kept alive by Harlequins who perform the ancient stories of the old Eldar race through dance and performance.
Through dance, performance, and murder.
That's the other reason why they're respected by the Drukhari, is because they are very likely some of the most effective killers and shock troops in the entire galaxy. Bar none.
When I was painting my Harlequins, I was looking through some of the weapons, and I was kind of randomly picking some weapons up when I was assembling them. But for Kelreth, the model that I painted for him, he has I saw this one gun that looked really cool. It looked like a crystal gun at first glance. So and then I decided to actually look into the codex. It's a It is a neuro disruptor.
Of not even of Eldar origin. They just found these, like, crystal guns and sort of adapted them to their own Eldar hardware. And what that thing does is it just fries your nervous system.
Yeah, it fries the nervous system. This is always, what happens when, this is, being a complete 40k noob, I seem to, accidentally stumble upon the most badass weapons. When I was assembling the Scourges, I gave one of my Scourges, I don't know anymore. It looked like a sniper cannon rifle, but apparently it shoots black holes. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I know which one to pick for my army.
Oh, nice. But that is actually very much a 40k thing. You just stumble on some really insane weapons, especially when looking into Eldar factions.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're known for. Really insane, devious weapons, kind of.
Yeah, and then of course they have such pretty names for their weapons, like Harlequin's Kiss and Harlequin's Embrace. And Harlequin's Kiss literally just liquefies the inside of the victim. Okay.
It tarantulas them. You put, it's like it looks like a wrist-mounted, gun. You put the barrel up to someone's, neck or body, and then a long monofilament wire enters the body, liquefies all their organs, and then retracts. So they literally just slump over in like a pile.
Yeah, so before we start gushing about the Harlequin weaponry, let's also talk about just the variety of masks, because they come in these specific sort of masks or troops, sort of, and they all have sort of different ways. They have different ways of being, sort of. For instance, the one my OC Kelreth is from is Shattered Mirage, because Shattered Mirage has this kind of very fatalistic view.
They're doomers.
Yeah, they're doomers. Well, why do you think Kelworth looks so grumpy? He's a fucking doomer.
Yeah,
he's a doomer. Yeah, they're like, their idea is, well, if the Eldar race is screwed, let's just take everybody else with us in one cosmic joke.
Oh god. Like, they very much have almost that Joker vibe, honestly, of like one bad day kind of fatalism sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. There are some other masks.
That is what happened to the Eldar, though. One bad day.
One bad day. Oh dear. You have actually your own like Harlequin OC, and you were at the beginning you were really into like the Silent Shroud. But nowadays you
to explain that, you have a mask which is almost like a Space Marine chapter. It has its own aesthetic and customs and everything, but the mask is also divided into troops, which are almost like battle companies, led by like a captain, kind of.
Or in this case, a troop master.
Yeah, in this case, they're called troop masters. But my first Harlequin OC was actually, he is a member of the Mask. He was a member of the Mask of the Silent Shroud, and their whole thing is that they're completely silent in combat. They walk silently. They fight their weapons, fire silently, and they don't say a word in combat because it's completely disorienting and unnerving, even to their allies. But one thing I noticed when reading up about battles that the Silent Shroud have canonically been in, one thing is always consistent. They always take a heavy amount of casualties. Like, they just die.
Oh.
We are so silent and mysterious, and they're dead.
Oh, oh yeah, that means they're the mimes.
They're not necessarily the mimes. A mime is a role within Harlequin society, within the Harlequin troop, but the Silent Shroud are a mask comprised entirely of mimes. And we'll get into that in a minute, like what the different roles are. But nowadays, he's sort of been converted into the Mask of the Weeping Dawn, partly because I wanted him to be more compatible with my other Harlequin OCs, and because I really, really like the color scheme for the Weeping Dawn, because it reminds me of this kind of taffy candy called Airheads that I used to really like as a kid.
Yeah, we're currently gushing about all the more obscure, the less well-known sort of masks, because I mean, I'm not saying anything against the Midnight Sorrow or the Frozen Stars. It's just Frozen Stars are the ultimate jerks.
Yeah. And
like with Midnight Sorrow, they're the ones that everybody kind of likes. They're like it's kind of like, yeah, it's like vanilla, but nothing against vanilla though.
Oh yeah, of course. And then there's also like Reaper's Mirth is also a very popular one. And they're just known for being extremely like cruel. They're almost like Drukhari in the way they act.
They have a cruel sense of humor.
It's because there's 3 types of masks. There's Masks of the Light, which are, I guess, a little more like reckless in their fighting style and like heroic seeming. Like they act more heroically.
They portray heroes.
Yeah, Masks of the Dark, which are a little more sinister and villainous in their actions and will be more prone to portraying like the fall of the Eldar. And Masks of the Twilight, which are like, in between.
Yeah.
Another extremely interesting mask, by the way, is the Mask of the Twisted Path. And what's with them is that they are known to sort of charm and kind of hypnotize other races in their performances and lead them into the webway where they'll just disappear. And then they will later reappear during a battle and use those essentially the forces that they Pied Pipered away as disposable auxiliaries. So you'll have humans painted with the orange and black colors of the mask, or even orcs or Tau. who are just fighting alongside the mask because they've been
Oh, look, it's me! I'm a clown man!
basically.
Another image for this podcast.
An orc. I am a clown.
I'm an Harlequin!
I'm a Harlequin now. And then get them to perform the story of the fall. And
my god!
And then Kaler Mencha Kane, he crumped Aisha, but then Slanesh came, and she crumped them all.
Yeah.
Oh god, it's so blurred. There's actually one thing we didn't mention about them, is their main function. Despite being essentially religious and cultural dancers and performers, and one thing it actually did remind me of, it used to be a big thing in Hindu culture, was to put on marionette puppet shows and shadow puppet shows of our old religious epics.
Oh, yeah!
The Mahabharata and the Ramayana. So, that just kind of, stuck out to me, as a thing. As a similarity I noticed. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Your character that you wanted, you're still, Ahriman, the character
Ahriman,
that you've...
yeah.
Ahriman. You incorporated a lot of sort of these two-headed masks, sort of, from certain performances, right? If I remember correctly?
Yeah, in his initial, design, he used to have a lot more Indian influence. His mask was red, even though that wasn't part of the Silent Shroud color scheme, because it's very customary for them, those puppets to have, red faces and stuff.
Yeah.
And things like that. Another idea was him to actually have wear the mask of his dead girlfriend on the back of his head. Because South Indian farmers in the jungle wear masks of human faces on the backs of their heads, because it deters tiger attacks. Because tigers won't attack if they think they're being watched by their prey. They like to hunt ambush. So if they see the face on the back of the head, they think they're being watched, and they're less likely to attack.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those really, old things. And along with his weapons, urumi, known as the whip swords.
Yeah, whip swords!
The fighting style with whip swords. Karalipaya, I think?
Dude, the more we talk about, the insane sort of weaponry of, in India, is sort of, ancient ancient Indian weapons, sort of, does kind of remind me sort of the I guess, the Harlequin and Eldar weaponry in general, sort of.
That actually is accurate, yeah. There's a lot of really weird things. The more I think about it. Because one ancient Indian weapon was a ring-shaped blade. A hollow ring-shaped blade that you would throw, and it could take off heads and limbs, called a chakram. And one of the main ammunition types used in a lot of Harlequin weapons is the shurikens. Which is obviously closer to, an actual, shuriken, an Asian... Because Harlequins are inspired by a lot of Asian cultures, in general. But that, flying disc thing, similar to, obviously, the Japanese, ninja shuriken, but also, you can see that similarity there, in the chakram. But also, there's one weapon that was big in India called the cutter, which is, it's like a gauntleted fist with a large dagger on the end of it. And there was one variant of it, which had two small flintlock guns on either side, tiny ones, on either side of the punch blade. So you could, punch someone with this giant dagger and then shoot them twice. If you really want, because you really want to kill them.
Oh boy,
It's something like that. You could see a Harlequin having something like that, the little poke 'em and smoke 'em kind of thing. Another thing to keep in mind is that the main function of Harlequins in canon is to protect the Black Library. So one of the characters that they come into conflict with in canon is, obviously demons, but more than anyone, Ahriman.
Oh boy, yeah, Ahriman, he really wants to get into that library, he really wants to get those books.
It just goes with the time-honored tradition in Warhammer of make Ahriman look stupid at any cost. He's one of those characters, everyone's oh, he's so threatening and intimidating, and we just kind of have to take their word for it because we never really see him do anything. It's called the Stormtrooper trap. Stormtroopers, their aim is impeccable, miss everything.
But yeah, have you seen, this is where, actually, my introduction to the Harlequins come in, actually, because my introduction was through Ahriman, oddly enough, through the comic Demonifuge, with everyone's favorite girl, Ephrail Stern, and her totally not boyfriend, the Harlequin Eldar Kiganil, or Kiasnil, or the Pariah.
Oh god.
It's basically that. It's Ephrael and Kiganel's bogus journey through the webway, and then all of a sudden, oh noes! They're confronted by Ahriman. Now cue in the comic that I did a long time ago. Hey kids, you know what time it is? No, torture time.
That comic is the most viewed video on my channel, oddly enough. That's got like 25,000 views.
Holy
despite me having like 100 subs.
It's a great video.
The algorithm picked it up.
All hail the algorithm. But yeah, that was my introduction through Harlequins, basically, and also of course Ahriman's eternal struggle to get them books.
Isaac, what do you mean I need a library card, Ahriman? God. Like, that's the thing about Ahriman. He is kind of almost like, he falls into one of, there's obviously the 4 demon primarchs of the Chaos Gods. Fulgrim, Angron, Mortarion, and Magnus.
Mm-hmm.
And then each of them has, like, their number 1 underling who exists to be told that they're threatening and then get their asses kicked. Like, all of them hit it. Like, Karn exists to get his ass kicked to gauge the heroes. Ahriman exists to get made a fool of by literally get clowned on. Literally. Typhus, I don't even know what Typhus does anymore. And, what's it called?
Lucius?
Lucius the Eternal. We get told he's the best swordsman in the galaxy. Oh, Lucius the Eternal. He's the best swordsman in the galaxy. And then we, never see him win a fight. Because all his opponents keep doing this. Like, he's like, oh, I'm going to fight you with sword. Like, we're going to use the sword technique and everything. His opponents just drop the pretext to just run his shit. Like, he literally just gets beaten with fists. Like, have at you! Bap!
Yeah.
I feel like that would probably work when fighting, a lot of style-based, fighters in Warhammer. Just bum rush them. They won't know what to do. Like Cato Sicarius or Lilith. Just rush them. Wait, no, you're doing it wrong. Stop. It's funny, it's same thing with Cato. We get told he's amazing, but he nearly gets killed in a one-on-one duel with, this space pirate lady, who is heavily implied and theorized to have some Eldar genetics in her. And she beats him in a sword fight and very nearly kills him. She takes out one of his hearts. But he wins by, cheating. He impales her with a flagpole. He won the fight, but still.
Still, yeah. But taking it all back to Harlequins before we venture off into everything else land, another thing that really has gotten me into Harlequins is also the audio dramas.
Oh, hell yeah. Those are absolutely great, and those were also more or less my introduction into Harlequins also, because you showed me them, and I like them a lot. For those who don't know, there are 2 audio dramas written by Gav Thorpe called Heirs of the Laughing God. One is the second one is Death's Mercy, but what's the first one called?
Deadly Wit?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, and it's basically about this Mask of the Fading Dawn. In the first audio drama, they fight an orc settlement that enslaved a bunch of humans, I think. And then another one, they
just as a flex.
Yeah,
you got to include that. In the first one, they fight this, or they go to this orc settlement and engage in this dangerous fight, and then it gets revealed at the end. The leader dragged them into this fight because another Harlequin was talking smack.
Oh.
So he felt the need to flex.
Yeah. That's so... Monster King.
And, the good thing about these audio dramas is they're performed immaculately well. It's not just, a voiceover narration. It's performed by a group of voice actors, and they do their jobs incredibly. And it's got sound effects. Especially
the lady playing the Death Jester. We haven't even talked about the Death Jesters yet. Those are some serious motherfuckers.
Yes.
And especially in the audio drama, the Death Jester is played by an old, almost, it sounds like an old granny or a crazy aunt.
Yeah, kind of. It does sound like that. And because that's almost the role that Death Jesters occupy in a Harlequin troupe. The reason for that is because the main types of Harlequin there are first you have the troop master, obviously, who takes the role of Kegarak in these performances. Then you have and almost acts like a father figure, like a stern paternal figure. Doesn't necessarily have to be a man, but is more paternal in nature, a stern one, towards the rest of the troupe. Then you have the Shadow Seer, who almost acts a little more nurturing, almost a little maternal, but again, does not need to be a woman.
Yeah, especially in the audio drama where it is portrayed by a dude who is always high.
Yeah, the character's canonically always just, like, stoned. But there's that. The Shadow Seers, the Troop Masters lead into combat. The Shadow Seers are psychers who use abilities to disorient and spread fear in the enemy. Then there are Master Mimes, who, what a mime is almost like a rookie Harlequin, almost like a Scout Marine, where they fight silently, they go ahead to detect traps and to scout, and also they're talented thieves. They're known to steal things off enemy commanders, like their hat or their necklace or their prized pistol, just to mess with them. And it's like to prove themselves, kind of, because again, they're rookies. There's a variant of the mime called the Virtuoso, which use more heavy specialized weaponry. That's what my character Ahriman is. He's a Virtuoso. Then there's the Master Mime, who is the leader of all the mimes in the troop. And then a lot after that, there is the Death Jester, who, like, one thing I've noticed is Master Mimes almost act like, mimes are almost like children of the troop. They're a little bit childlike in how they act and how they're treated.
I think you're no longer tying this to the audio drama. You're tying this to that other book that you've been reading, Magnifigal.
Yeah, there's no mimes in the audio dramas, but yes, I'm getting into the Magnifigal, which is a book I did read recently. It's a novel. It's novella.
Novella.
Yeah, it's really good. Magnifigal, it does center around a troop. Wait, before that, the Death Jester. We kept the Death.
Yeah.
The Death Jester plays the role of death itself. They use heavy, specialized weaponry and are meant to be as menacing and deadly as possible in combat. Very simple,
yes.
Very terrifying. But this book, Magnifigal, which I absolutely loved, I just finished it, and I almost want to reread it because I liked it that much. It centers around a troop of Harlequins who come across a small craft world, a very small one, that has been completely wiped out. And then their investigation on what happened and to find vengeance leads them to Camorra. So it is a bit of a mystery novel. But the good thing about both Magnifigal and these audio dramas is they show how the troops interact, how Harlequins speak and talk and think, which is extremely fascinating.
Yeah.
And, like, that's why writing the dialogue of a Harlequin character is very fun.
Yeah.
Because it's so thespian.
It is, yes.
Yeah, because that thing of being a performer and taking on these roles permeates every aspect of their lives.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just a role. Like, it's your new identity. It's your new life.
They actually do sort of, that's once again tying it back to what I heard and what I listened to in the audio drama. Like, I don't know where the Red Swan begins and Ahriman ends. Like,
yeah. What's it called? The leader of this troop, this mask, gets berated by his own Death Jester, saying, like, I don't know where your character ends and where you begin. And then he sort of retorts back, saying, like, yeah, well, you're, like, I can tell by the cruelness in you that, you know, you still have some of the Drukari in you. You haven't left that behind entirely. That's the thing. It's like nominally they sort of become their roles, but a little bit of their old self will always shine through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But this book, Magnifigal, in this investigation, and the most interesting thing about the Magnifigal is that I notice an influence from my favorite Edgar Allan Poe story, The Mask of the Red Death. And this is spoilers for the book here. So we should probably put, like, a timestamp, if at all possible, of when my spoiler thing ends, in case anyone wants to read it, which I would extremely recommend.
Skip to that part.
In Vile, there is a keep where there is a hallway that leads to 8 different rooms. Each of these rooms is color-coded. That is the same thing that happens in Mask of the Red Death. There's a plague that causes people to bleed out and die painfully going on in this medieval country, and yet the nobles are all holding a big ballroom party in a castle with several different rooms that are all perfectly color-coded. One where everything in the room is blue, everything is green, everything is amber, everything is orange. But there's one room that no one goes in. In Magnifigal, it's the black room, But in Mask of the Red Death, it's the Red Room. Like, no one goes into this room, and they're having this big, debauched party while everyone is dying outside. Because in Mask of Vile, this keep is in an area of the area of Camorra where it's inhabited almost entirely by these, like, aquatic, amphibian, almost Shadow of Innsmouth type creatures. Because there are creatures other than Drukhari in the Webway and specifically in Camorra. They usually occupy very much an underclass. And they're all dying outside. And while the people just sort of party inside. And then, in The Mask of the Red Death, a mysterious figure shows up at this party.
And it turns out to be Death, basically.
Death, yeah. And that's a similar thing. Like, you know, these mysterious figures show up at this party in Vile, and they turn out to bring death with them. So, okay, actually, you know what? Yeah, no, I think actually there's a lot more similarity between Mask of the Red Death and Vile.
Well, it has the name Mask in them.
Oh, shit.
What tipped you off? You fell right into that one.
Oh. No, I'm like, hey, look at all these tiny, cool similarities. And then I line them all up. Oh. Huh.
Oh. Mask of Vile. Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah. A lot of the quirks of Harlequins are very interesting because of that. Like, the fact that they're welcome by these Drukhari inside, when you think a Drukhari would never welcome an outsider. Because, like, they're like, yes, welcome, come and perform when they show up. Like, due to the nature of Warhammer, Harlequins, they serve as an extremely interesting narrative foil for anyone, be them, like, if they're on the same side or fighting against them. And,
yes.
Yeah, like, be it either sort of the stringent craft worlders, or Drukhari, or even humans. And the humans that Harlequins fight alongside the most would either be certain Space Marines, or more specifically, the Ordo Malleus of the Inquisition. For those who don't know, the Ordo Malleus are demon hunters, who are an extremely interesting sub-faction that I like a lot, probably one of my favorites. Yeah, no, it's because since Ordo Malleus are demon hunters, the few humans who have been allowed in the Black Library by the Harlequins have been Ordo Malleus Inquisitors. Like, there's a weird working relationship between the two.
Yeah.
And another thing to notice is that in the Dawn of War series, Harlequins work alongside the Blood Ravens, but across several books, being...
Wait, Dawn of War? As in, like, the games?
The games and books. There's books. Like, 3 books, and they're supposed to be quite good.
Oh, I really need to get into them.
That's why everybody ships Maka and Gabriel Angelos, is because of the stuff that happens in the books.
Oh, that's why.
That's why.
Now I have been brought to new knowledges. Yes, thank you. Well, yeah, remember, this is the Hereticast.
Yep. Like, one thing to note is that across several occasions, in the book Lucas the Trickster, there is a Harlequin character, and I don't know what role that Harlequin character fills, but they are featured in that book, and Lucas himself is a space wolf. And furthermore, in the book The Victim's Dance, space wolves are being hunted by Harlequins, and they sort of have to play their role in the Harlequins' dance in order to survive. I haven't read The Victim's Dance, but I've heard it's really good. So, like, there seems to be this really weird correlation between space wolves and Harlequins, and I'm not sure why. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll find out why. But though that does kind of shine light on one problem. There is very little content about the Harlequins, because it's hard. Their main pull is how mysterious and spooky they are. So if you start writing huge, like, novels and trilogies about them, it kind of kills it. Like, it kills the mystique.
That's why we love the faction, because, like, we actually kind of like it to be small, because that's kind of their thing, because they're mysterious, that you don't really know much about them. A lot of it is sort of hidden in mystery and mystique and like...
Yeah. Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors, yeah, like under thespian dialogue, and hidden under layers of clown paint and makeup and thespian dialogue, sort of, and
yeah.
That's why we love the faction.
Absolutely. Some of the notable stuff, all I could find is the 2 audio dramas by Gav Thorpe, the book Mask of Vile, and the book Mask of Vile, which, even though it's supposedly about Harlequins, most of the book, I think a large section of the book, is dedicated towards the dialogue, interactions, and going-ons of the Drukhari that are the focus of these Harlequins. So even a book about Harlequins is not really mainly about Harlequins. Like, that's the big thing. They play a supporting role more than anything. The short story Faces, which I have not read, but is also apparently really good, that does center more around Harlequins specifically. It's about half the length of Vile. I will get into reading that. I meant to have finished reading it before this was recording, but, I got hung up because I have had a lot of work lately.
Yeah, it's okay, yeah.
But also the books Path of the Incubus, Path of the Archon, and Path of the Outcast by Andy Chambers, who also wrote Mask of Vile, also do feature the same Harlequin characters in Mask of Vile. Like, Andy Chambers made his own little troupe of Harlequins, and then he just inserts them into all the rest of his writing because he loves them so much. Like, especially his, Solitaire, Motley, who is just a little shit. He just, inserts him anywhere he can, because Chambers loves his Harleys.
This is the part where we shit on Motley.
Motley, you bastard. Motley is such an ass. I love him. He just,
I need to read I need to read these books. I have to get around to that as well. I feel so bad.
No, it's fine. No, for an explanation, Motley is something called a Solitaire, which is the other outside specialist role in a Harlequin mask.
He plays the role of Slanesh.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone has their roles to play within a Harlequin performance, but sometimes that performance will involve Slanesh. So there's one specific type of Harlequin, the Solitaire, who is the most deadly fighter among them, who fills that role, and in doing so, filling that role, essentially damns his own soul. He's almost like an ablationist inquisitor in that regard, where, he accepts his own damnation. Kegarak will try and save the souls of a Solitaire when they die, rather than let them be consumed. But again, not always successful. So again, you really are gambling with your soul in that regard. So they have a very extremely grim sense of humor and are very lethal in combat for that reason. And for that reason, they're shunned by their fellow Harlequins because of what they represent, because of what they play. Despite them being vital, they're shunned, which is very interesting. And that kind of explains, I guess, why Motley is such a little shit, because he does kind of have to look out for himself a lot.
Yeah. He
screws with his own people. And, in their heart of hearts, you can tell they love him, they care about Motley, but they just don't like dealing with him. He's the problematic child, quote unquote.
Yeah. It's oh boy, here comes Motley.
Oh god, it's Motley.
It's the fucking local goth kid he's the goth in the family.
Yeah, they basically straight up say to Motley, they're like, damn it, Motley, this is why we don't hang out with you. They essentially straight up say that to him. They're like, this is why we don't hang out with you, Motley. God damn it,
This is why Mom doesn't fucking love you.
It's just firing off a Harlequin's kiss into the air. This is why Kegarak doesn't fucking love you.
Anyhow, so
yeah,
we want to get to that part where we explain why we called this episode Clown's Rights, and you will take the stage now, my dear Pinkuisitor, because...
The stage is mine for my greatest performance yet. Oh boy, is this a story.
Because it turns out the whole Harlequin thing was kind of a prophetic thing, apparently, so... Go ahead!
Warning. The following segment has been labeled as quite spicy. Listener's discretion is advised.
For anyone who knows me personally will have heard this story, absolutely. But the thing with this is that I have been a mime before. Back in high school, I did drama, and I know people won't count, oh, that's just high school drama, I don't care. In my heart of hearts, it counts, because it was special. Oh boy, was it special. In high school, for drama class, we had to put on a large class performance as dictated by our drama teacher. So she wrote up a play that involved mimes and clowns. But the thing about this play is that it was an extremely awkward and clunky metaphor for the civil rights movement.
Oh god.
To put things into perspective, how this play opens is a mime couple going to the hospital to give birth. But the baby comes out as a clown, and then the father is enraged and the mother leaves in shame.
So somebody was engaging in clown cuckoldry?
Scene 1.
Oh no.
That sets the tone. And beyond that, the whole story deals with essentially clowns being put in very disadvantaged situations. Like there's someone secretly wanting to be a clown. We have Mimeo and Clowniette, Romeo Juliet, and other such things, and a protest scene.
Mimeo and Clowniette?
Mimeo and Clowniette, yes. And obviously, a play like this needs a villain, someone to play the solitaire of the performance, really. And that was me. What was my character, you might ask? Not Slaanesh. A Nazi.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, a Nazi. See, the thing is for this story is that everyone was either, in terms of their costumes, was either wearing socks or was barefoot. Me, I was wearing camouflage hunting boots. Everyone was wearing tight-fitted black clothing, as you do. I wore a dark, long army coat that we had in a costume box, and a black and white military cap. Everyone else had regular mime makeup. My mime makeup was done up to look like a skull. And I would always come into the scene to harangue these clowns and oppress them. There was one scene where all the mimes were in a...
The more I hear from this, like, the more I hear this, the more I feel like this is, like, some weird, like, I don't know, like, something, like, straight out of, like, I don't know, at some point, people would have, nobody questioned this, right?
None of us questioned this. None of us questioned this. Because we were just, like, we were all in the 11th grade, so none of us questioned it.
Oh, dear.
I would come onto the stage and just start oppressing anyone who wanted to be a clown. Like the one guy who was thinking about being a clown. We had a little thought bubble that we'd fly around his head. I would start marching around the stage and staring at him and glaring at everyone. I would strut around like a rooster and like swivel my head like an owl to keep my eyes on people. Just like, you know, just to like move so like weirdly and unnaturally, just to seem menacing but also silly. And like I would this couple that tried to Mimeo and Clowniette, I would put a stop to it. This guy who was fantasizing about being a clown, I would put a stop to it. There was a scene where the mimes, were all on a bus. And then this clown woman comes on.
You put him in the back of the bus?
The one clown woman comes on, sits in the front of the bus, and I force her to the back. I literally Rosa Parks to clown.
This is getting increasingly weirder.
It's turtles all the way down.
It's turtles all the way down.
And then the penultimate scene involves a riot where the clowns and a few mimes are protesting for the equal rights. The whole play is silent aside from the music. They're, shaking their fists and just making clown noises. The clowns didn't have any lines. The mimes were silent, but the clowns didn't have any lines. They would just go, like they would just make noises. So like, it was like this protest scene. It turned into a riot and ended with me stabbing a little clown girl in the stomach.
Oh, Jesus!
And then laying down dead, and then me having this, like, Hamlet moment of, oh, what have I done? And then everyone being like, oh no, this poor little clown girl has died. And then, like, she gets up and sprouts angel wings, and then she was supposed to have the one line of dialogue in the whole play, where she gives a bastardized version of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Where she literally said, I had a dream, blah, 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 little clown girls, little clown boys, or little mime boys, little clown girls. That sort of thing. Like a beat-for-beat remake of a speech by Dr. King. That's not disrespectful at all.
Yeah, this is not disrespectful at all.
At all. Rosa Parks, Dr. King, don't worry about it. Let's just portray them as clowns.
Oh,
no one put two and two together. But the thing is, this one line of dialogue in the whole play, the girl doing it actually forgot her line. So she got up there, stuttered for a few seconds, and then just screamed clown rights. And
Clown's rights!
Clown rights! And that was the end of the play.
Honestly, that is the only good way to end this. Really.
By screaming. And like, it was years later, like 5 or 6, like 5 years later, I was in this bar in Toronto called The Imperial. It's a very quaint bar. A really nice one. You should actually visit if you ever get the chance.
You were in The Imperial!
The Imperial, yes.
Your life was 40K before you even knew it.
Basically. No, but I'm in this bar with the Imperial, and I'm talking to my friends. I'm like, hey guys, you remember that one play? They're like, yeah, the one where you were a mime, right? I'm like, was I a Nazi? They're like, oh my god, you were a Nazi. Like, we just mulled it over. We're like, oh, oops. It took me years to realize what was wrong.
Are we the baddies?
Exactly. Like, and here's the thing. That was actually I did really well in that play, and that was actually a really fun character. One thing, if I ever get back into doing miming, like performing, one thing I would love to do is bring back that character, just not as a Nazi. Like, just as a very silly, like, maybe army drill sergeant, like a Sergeant Silent, that other mimes and clowns could, like, mess with in order to tell a story, you know? That character would need to be revamped for sure, but, like, absolutely.
Yeah, like, but not as, like, a metaphor for Nazis. This is just...
Obviously, yeah. Again, just, like, sort of a stern, like, you know, like, drill sergeant or something like that. Still, like, it hits that point of, like, who thought this was a good idea?
Well, the drama teacher. Yeah.
She was a goddamn character, I swear.
Oh, boy. Well, on that note, I guess that concludes our...
let's segue into not talking about this anymore.
Yeah.
On that note, well, that seems like a good note to end off.
Yeah.
Alright, so, yeah. Thank you all for listening. This has been the third episode of the Hereticast. These are very fun to do.
Yeah.
This one did get a little bit rambly, but it's because it was about a topic that we're both very enthusiastic about, so...
That is true, yeah.
We had a lot of fun with this one. And, yeah. So, clown rights.
Clown rights, yeah, okay. Clown's rights.
Say it loud, say it proud, folks.
Clown's rights.